When you swing the club back, we don't want to hinge the wrists deliberately. And I'm deliberately using the word deliberately, just to so that when you do swing the club back, you're not manipulating the movement, you're not creating tension, and even more so, you're not actually introducing a movement that may not be helpful in your golf swing. So the question is, if I'm not deliberately hinging my wrists, what am I doing? How do my wrists hinge? Because of course they need to. So let's take a look at the role of the movement. Essentially, we're going to rely on momentum. If I hold the club in my fingertips here and just move my body back and through, the path of the club stayed very uniform. And the second thing is that the club definitely moved around my fingertips as I swung back and through. Now, the reason that the club moved around my fingertips is because my arms are moving at a different speed to my club. As soon as the club in the backswing is moving faster than my arms, it'll begin to catch up and overtake my arms. That's with the fingertip drill, which is obviously quite, loose and free. But I'm looking to create the same type of condition when I'm swinging the club and I'm holding the club correctly. So let's have a look at how that actually operates during the swing. Now, I'm going to make a movement where I'll hold the club, but I'm going to move my arms through about this range here, just a short movement. Now, when I swing my arms back, say to this point here, the club's got some momentum and it wants to keep going a little bit. So you can see that because the club kept moving, it caused my wrist to hinge, which is very different to me deliberately doing that motion. Now, if I do the same thing, but this time I'm going to change direction and go back the other way. So I change direction, go back the other way. That actually causes the club to hinge a little bit more and then lag behind or trail behind my arm movement during the swing. Now, if I make this a continuous motion, so now I'm going to move my arms backwards and forwards. So now I'm creating this fishtailing effect as I'm going back and through. Now I can time when the club catches up to being in line with my arm, which is going to be about here, which is sort of just outside my left shoe there. So I'm timing that motion as the club's swinging back and through. And you'll notice also that my body movement is going to assist with that. Now it helps with the coordination and it helps with the catching up and the timing of the movement of the wrists. My body motion slightly leads the movement, particularly in the downswing. But we're getting a bit distracted. We're talking more about the backswing. So let's go back to the backswing and have a look a little bit more about how this movement occurs. So if I'm swinging the club back, I want the club to swing back, say on its correct path or on plane. So how do I go about doing that? As an example, let's say I'm throwing the club back, say out this way, or halfway between the two. So if I throw the club, say out this way somewhere, then in the backswing you'd look and say, oh no, your hands are too high. And of course they are. My club's gone back too steeply, my hand path and the club path are both incorrect. If I swing the club back this way, now my hands are too low and the club path is too inside. But essentially I've directed the path going back by throwing the club. In this case, I'm throwing the club back towards the camera there. So now when I throw it back on the correct path, it will actually move to where I want it to be. Now where I want it to be is that if I swing back to the top of the swing and I imagine a line from my hands to the ball, that should sort of go through my right shoulder there. If I swing my hands back out this way, it'll be higher. If I swing my arms back that way, it's going to be lower. So I'm looking to get the direction that I'm throwing my arms and the club to be correct. Now, while my wrists are nice and light, I still do need to concentrate on where the club face or how it's oriented, because that's going to influence my club face control and directional control. So when I swing the club back, let's look for some checkpoints. When I get the club back to here, first checkpoint is that when the club gets to this point here, if I look back at my club face, the toe of the club is not completely vertical, it's angled forward. Now from my perspective, that looks like 11 o'clock. From your perspective, looking back, that looks like it's at around about 1 o'clock. Now, while I don't want to go here necessarily and stop, I might do that with very light wrists just to check the orientation of the club face. I see a lot of times players will swing the club back and they'll either begin rotating the wrists too much, and you can see the influence on the club face. That will typically lead to the club face being very open at the top of the swing. So by open, you can see that the toe of the club is pointed to the ground. I also see players taking the club back, and this can be partly influenced by, or largely influenced by, how a player holds the club, where the club goes back and now the face of the club is pointed to the ground and the toe of the club is pointed much more forward. Now if a player continues that movement, then the face of the club is pointed more to the sky at the top of the swing. So where I'm looking to get to at the end of the backswing is to have the toe of the club angled at roughly a 45-degree angle. Now I don't have to get caught up on exactly where that club face is. As long as it's roughly within those ranges, I'm going to be fine. So if I swing the club back, the toe of the club's pointed to, again, my view, 11 o'clock, then it's likely that my wrist movement has been quite stable as I've started back. And of course, that's what I'm looking to achieve. So if you practice these movements, remember we're looking to have the club go back with the fingers are firm, but my wrists and my arms are really quite light as I'm creating that motion. The more you practice that movement, the more relaxed and free your movements are going to be, not just in the backswing, but also in the downswing as well. And that'll lead to a lot better strike. You'll hit the ground where you want to. You'll have better control of the path of the club, its swing plane, and better control of the club face as well.